What was it?
So, well, I guess start from the beginning. Venerable Tanya was saying, distinguishing the difference between different assemblies that are interested in, who are skilled in pretty words, and assemblies who are skilled in interrogation. We've been talking about interrogation, self-interrogation, kind of.
As opposed to inspirational poetry.
Exactly, yeah. So, being skilled or being well trained in being able to inquire into your own understanding, your own views, and that I guess can be quite a challenge to kind of be able to be prepared to articulate your views and be open to criticism.
Yeah. Well, not be taking it personally, because it's not criticism.
Yeah.
Because usually criticism means I'm criticizing you.
Yeah.
It's more of a just pointing out like contradiction in your understanding, lack of understanding, lack of clarity. So the only way to benefit from it is to basically learn how to not take it personally, because it's not personal. That's the thing. Yeah. The fact that you can always upgrade your understanding means you can always improve whatever your starting point is, but not if you're afraid to even question it, because you can't help but take it personally. And that's why you can also see whether a person has a valid argument or not, is if somebody points out like certain lack in your understanding, that's like the best thing they can do for you, because now you can actually look at it and clarify it from contradiction, develop it. But if somebody just starts attacking you like ad hominem personally, it means okay, you can't learn anything from them. If they just say, oh, I have no argument against what his view is, I just don't like the way he walks. Did you see him walking? That's not proper, or something like that. And that's it, as if that somehow relates to invalidating the point you made that obviously challenges. So that's what I mean, like, even you can find that in yourself. Whether you are looking to blame for faults means, okay, so that means I am taking my views personally.
Yeah.
Or if you just get offended by somebody because they presented a view, like that should already be a red flag for you.
Yeah, so we did a session last week where we were kind of beginning to inquire into our own understanding. Anyway, so something's come up more recently where I've kind of realised that perhaps I seem to have a different understanding from some of the things that you've been saying. So maybe we can explore that. I'll see if there's if there's any kind of what problems there are there that we can address. And so it's about the three determined characteristics of the determined. I think it's about 3 places in the sutras you hear about these 3 determined characteristics of the determined. Arising is manifest. Let's say upada panyayati, like arising is manifest. Passing away or loss or decay is manifest, and change while standing. Anyatatang, titassa anyatatang panyayati, change while enduring is manifest. And
so what's your understanding?
Okay, so how to start? So I've heard you say that so arising is manifest is like the same thing as saying something is increasing in its presence or something is decreasing in its presence. Either way, something is there, enduring.
Yeah. And the point of that is because most people would start with the assumption that you can observe the first point when thing begins. Yeah. But you can only find it as already being there, hence increasing its presence. Means it implies having been there before you even attended it directly.
So I think I see the third characteristic in the same way as what you're saying.
The characteristic of enduring.
Enduring, yeah. That something, whether arising is manifest, or change while standing, or passing away is manifest, something is there.
To that extent, it endures as the same thing.
As the same thing that it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the third, that's possibly the most important.
It is, because within the third you discern arising and ceasing.
Yeah. But I seem to have a different understanding on what the first two characteristics are.
Mm-hmm.
So arising is manifest. So rather than it being that there's a thing and that thing happens to be arising, or that thing happens to be fading out, because that means that you're sort of there's this thing, and then there's this secondary quality of it either arising or it fades away. But in order to get there, you've already presupposed this thing. Whereas these three characteristics are what determines a thing.
Mm.
So
when you say a thing, what are you referring to?
So
something you can attend to?
Yeah, something that you can attend to.
Right. Well, that's the first thing, isn't it? It's on the level of the characteristics of the determinations.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't attend to them directly. So these characteristics are to be understood on the experience as a whole level.
Yeah, you can't know.
Not like I'm looking at it, this arises, I'm looking at this ceases.
Yeah, no,
it's experience, the base of your experience as a whole, that's where it's already manifested.
Yeah, sorry, the three characteristics can't be attended to like that. But a thing can be attended to.
Sure.
And a thing is understood as being a thing by virtue of these three characteristics. These three characteristics are what in virtue of which things are understood as things.
How come?
That's what I think these three
How would you know the
characteristics
three characteristics unless you think of them as things?
Well, you will do. Yeah, you will do. But it's
so
just
how
that
can you then say that, on the basis of your experience, how can you then say that the things are determined by three characteristics solely? As in, they are things because they are determined by these three characteristics. Why are they things? Because they arise, because they cease, because they persist?
No, for whatever thing you can possibly imagine, these three characteristics are there.
Yeah, sure.
That's the way I'd see it. So these three characteristics are kind of already given when there's ever a thing.
All three.
Anything.
To the same extent.
Yeah.
At the same time.
This seems to be where there's a difference.
Yeah, I think let's bring it down onto a practical level, as opposed to the thing is by the virtue of this, by the virtue of that. How are you feeling right now, overall?
Okay, so
what's your presently enduring mood?
So right now, I guess I can say I'm slightly nervous, or slightly kind of like I know I'm kind of talking to you.
What feeling would that boil down to?
A feeling.
You don't have a nervous feeling.
No, sort of. Let's say.
What is
slightly
nervousness?
uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. So it's overall uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
So, would you be able to attend to that? Would you be able to designate it to me now if it weren't there on its own?
No.
If it were manifested on its own?
No. Yeah.
If it's not enduring for these 2 minutes that it took you to describe it.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's there on its own, enduring.
Yeah.
Now you can look within that as well. So that's your basis. That's like, well, doesn't mean you can't look further than that. You could probably. It sort of doesn't matter where you look. The point is, wherever you look, you will find a thing, the thingness of a thing enduring. So your mood will be there given beforehand.
Yeah.
That's why you can stop doing what you're doing, think about it, and this is how I feel.
Yeah.
Because that's how you are feeling. That's the feeling that's manifested.
Yeah.
But now you can choose to focus on different things, on slightly less general things. So overall you're a bit nervous, but from a different point of view, say if I ask you, are you comfortable otherwise, not just like emotionally, like sort of discomfort because you're nervous. Do you have any emotional discomfort on account of your presently enduring health, for example?
No.
No. So if you were to focus on that, that's positive. That's a good feeling.
Yeah.
So would that feeling be able to be manifested, to be described and designated if it weren't there?
No.
If it's not arisen there, if it's not enduring there on its own level.
Mm.
So that's the thing. Like, so nobody denies that you can attend to different parts, but doesn't matter what parts you attend, doesn't matter how particular you get. What you're attending to is because you were
The
given
thing is
an
already
option
there.
to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You couldn't attend it if it weren't there enduring on its own.
Yeah.
So discerning that pre-attention sort of background that you can know before you attend it.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. If you look at it directly, that's on the level of attention, which means now there is something else that's pre-attentive, so to speak, as a basis for your attention. So when you say you have three presently enduring feelings, how can you possibly know that? Sorry, three characteristics enduring at the same time. How can you possibly know that unless you are able to step outside of the whole setup of already arisen thing and see it? Oh look, all three are there. Because for you, it's either presently enduring mood that you just discovered, so to speak, on the basis of already enduring being there, manifested, that if you dwell on, might start increasing. Your nervousness,
Okay,
your uncomfortability and so on.
But so you're saying that this upada panyayati, the first characteristic, arising is manifest, is to do with whether the thing is increasing in its intensity, increasing in its presence.
Yeah, I suppose you can describe it like that. Whether it's basically coming at you or going away from you.
So to me, that's anyattatang. That's
well, no,
change.
that is also that.
It's changing, yeah. The fact that if it's increasing in its intensity...
As we said in
changing.
the previous talk we recorded, arising. How can you distinguish arising? How can you say my nervousness is increasing unless it's the same identity of the same nervousness that you are aware of being existing 5 minutes ago?
But you can recognise that something has arisen. There is something, this thing here which has arisen.
Okay, so?
So the upada is not something which is...
How can you recognise a thing that has arisen unless that thing is already enduring?
That's it. Yeah. You can't, but it has.
So how can you then say a thing is arising and ceasing and enduring, and I can see it all? So it's either arising.
I'm not saying that's the thing. I'm not saying that. So let's say this mood. Right now.
Let me just clarify before you go further, because I'm not sure if you understood me. If thing is arising means it's already persisting or changing. If thing is ceasing means it's already persisting or changing.
Yeah.
Why? Because arising and ceasing is on one level, persisting or changing is on another level. Simultaneously present level. Which means if you were to understand thoroughly the third characteristic, you imply understanding of the other two. There is no arising without an enduring entity of a thing that's arising towards you. There is no ceasing without an enduring entity of a thing that's ceasing away from you.
So
either way, endurance is there.
So I've kind of come up with this. I find that I tend to see this arising not as something which is coming towards me. I guess it's
just a figure of speech, though. It's not like actually it's coming at you.
It's like not a that seems too temporal to me. That like the upada is not a kind of upada is not a sort of a process or like something which is taking time.
Well, no, it becomes a process if you forget the fact that it's already enduring, and it is a process in that way.
So basically, something has arisen. It's there rather than not being there.
Okay.
So this mood, one recognises not only the mood, but upada is panyayati. Upada is recognised. The actual.
So what's the difference then between ceasing and arising?
So with this mood of nervousness that has arisen.
If arising is for you, this thing is there, that's it, doesn't involve the particular lasting over 5-10 minutes, then ceasing will be for you, thing is not there.
No,
but that's a contradiction in terms.
No, but no. So it's no. I'm not. So it's not that. It's not that mood which is ceasing, because it can't have arisen and be ceasing at the same time.
So what is then?
So this mood that's there right now has arisen.
Okay. So you're still
simultaneously, slightly, yeah. Simultaneously, I recognise though that involves the quite pleasant, jovial mood I was in a few minutes ago when we were just sitting out there. That's gone away.
So is that cessation you're referring to?
So the fact that something has emerged necessarily implies that something else has faded away.
So basically, arising is one thing, ceasing is another thing.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So how is that then not
and it's
linear?
not necessarily.
Whereby, if you don't recollect,
no, it's like point of view. When something comes into attention, something else goes out of attention.
Yes, sure, but
That's
unless you attend, how can you know what got out of attention unless you choose to attend to it again?
No, you know peripherally that this has now become to come to the fore, has sort of emerged, whereas something else has faded out.
How would you know your jovial mood unless you're recollecting it now on account of a non-jovial mood that's right here? You choose to recollect, you choose to look, see, this is what was gone. That's more linear than what I'm describing to you. That is basically management effort type of thing. After this thing has affected me on the basis of experience as a whole, here I am attending to relatively secondary aspects, and that's the point. The memory of the previous thing is not on the same footing as a current endurance, it's implied within it. So within the arising of the first thing, that's how you're able to recollect other things that were there before.
But again, so I'm saying, this may be wrong. I'm quite happy to be proved wrong.
That's the whole point of this.
But I seem to have this notion that in something having emerged, that necessarily means that other things sort of aren't there, and anything is so basically my account of these three characteristics.
But there is a slight contradiction in just what you said. If you say there are things that are not there.
Yeah, I don't mean that they're not there. Like just faded out.
Not the center of your experience anymore.
Exactly. Not the center of your experience anymore. Yeah. But they're there peripherally.
Okay.
And the point is that these three characteristics of what determines a thing as a thing must involve other things. So it's not all. So get
back to the feeling.
So the idea of like understanding.
Tell me what's not here that you're referring to stand as a cessation in regard to the present enduring uncomfortable feeling.
Unpleasant feeling being present.
Okay.
Involves necessarily pleasant feeling not being present.
Okay. So why would then
you cannot
the one that's not present? Why would that qualify for cessation?
Not cessation. The word isn't cessation. It's vaya, which means sort of loss or lack.
Lack.
Yeah. So it's just kind of.
So lack is manifested. How would you translate then the second characteristic? So if the first one is lack, the second one is lack.
Yeah.
How is the first one then translated?
Upada generally is translated as arising, or you might say, I don't know, arising, emerge, but not as a. I don't take it. This is what you're kind of being careful to avoid, this idea that arising means that you can watch something come.
I know. We're not talking about that.
I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that.
But I'm trying to now see why would you be trying to rebrand the lacking, the vaya, say, it's not cessation, it's more like lack. If it's a lack, means it's still there, just not as much.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for arising then?
It's present as.
Means can be more present.
Yeah.
Means it's increasing.
Yeah.
And vaya means it's decreasing.
Yeah, but it's not. But you're attaching the upada and the vaya to the nervous feeling, whereas I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that whenever I recognise this nervous feeling. Recognising that nervous feeling involves recognising something has emerged, something has the lack, but not the same thing. Something else, other things have sort of given way for that thing to be there.
Well,
and this seems to me like you can't understand a thing without reference to other things. It's inconceivable of thinking of something that's completely independent of other things.
So if arising is manifested as one of the characteristics, why doesn't it say that arising is determined by the other characteristics that then determine things as things?
It just says arising is discerned. So not that this thing is recognised as arising.
Well, no, that's what you just said.
No.
You said that arising is known by basically other things that have ceased. But
No.
this list characteristic in itself, basically, arising is manifested.
Yeah.
But your argument now for cessation, let me finish. Your argument for cessation then is that cessation determines arising as arising. And you can only arrive at that view by comparing the two, which is exactly how I see what you're saying now. By saying that, by something arising means other things are ceasing,
Yeah.
you are not on the level of experience as a whole, which is always that unified. Erlebnis, the German word which I'm sure you're familiar with. No, you step down from which you can look, okay, this thing is arising, but now when I attend to the only way you can attend to arising and attend to ceasing, like at the same time, so to speak, from one to the other, is because you are not at the level of experience as a whole. What I'm talking about is on the level of experience as a whole, you're going to find only two things. Either increasing in its presence or decreasing in its presence. Simultaneously means it's enduring.
But you're applying that arising is manifest, is present,
Or ceasing is manifest. On that fundamental level, it's either one or the other.
So you're applying those arising is manifest, ceasing is manifest to the same thing.
What? No, they're different experiences.
No, but you're saying the thing is either arising or the thing is passing away.
The experience.
They can't both be happening.
Let's talk about the thing, because it seems to me that for you it already implies something you're heavily attending and comparing.
Okay.
Experience as a whole.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the most general terms.
Yeah.
It's either increasing, it's manifested. That's where you can talk about it.
Yeah.
But what I'm referring to is that manifestation can be arising or it can be lacking, whichever you want to translate it. And there is no comparison between the two.
I want to say that it's like that arising or the cessation is actually on the level of the thing changing while it endures.
Yeah.
So that's the third characteristic, not the first or second. The first and second characteristic is simply the thing has arisen. Something arising, the phenomenon of having arisen or arising is discerned. So the phenomenon of lack or loss or gone away, that's also discerned.
So basically,
not the same thing that has arisen, and it's just that those phenomena are there.
Yeah, I see. I know what you're saying, but the point is there. How can you then not say it's not temporal?
Because it's not. Well, I don't see that as temporal. That's just like that's.
Because look, now it's arising.
No, you see, whenever you recognise something, you recognise the mood you're in, you go, this has arisen. It could not be.
When has arisen?
I can't get, that's inconceivable. It's just some time ago, I don't know, I recognise it.
It came to be. Is that what you mean by arising?
It's...
So you say yourself, the mood I am in came to be, whatever you want to call it. So why would you then now, or how rather, can you be comparing the idea of this other moods that's not this mood that I'm in is relevant to this mood that I'm in by not being that mood, but I'm still on the fundamental level of the mood and I'm not comparing the mood with my attention.
Because can't you only understand a thing in terms of other things? So like
no,
the mood,
that's why it always boils down to the convergence point of feeling.
So, for instance...
You don't need to know other feelings in order to know that it's unpleasant. It's felt unpleasantly. It requires zero of your perceptual comparisons and conceptions. It's felt like this, or it's felt like this, or it's felt like neither. There is no below that threshold. And that's my whole point. When it comes to the thing that has manifested, as in mood as a whole, you can't leave the feeling out. But once you start comparing what has ceased, what has not ceased, like it can all make sense, but it's going to be on the level of you perceiving it and comparing it, which means it's not on the fundamental level of enduring experience as a basis of all of the acts you make.
Yeah, all of what I'm saying is that's all given that there's this third characteristic of whatever this upada and whatever this vaya is, there is this thing enduring which makes all this possible in the first place.
Well, no, see, again, that's basically almost sounds like an explanation. Oh, there is this, because it endures, which is why this is all possible. How can you think of that which makes this possible unless that's being experienced right now, which means there is something else that makes it possible. But how can you think that unless you assume the external point of view to yourself that then explains how all this is possible for me? That's the whole point. What I'm saying is arising, ceasing, enduring is on the level of phenomenology. If you start explaining it, you fall from it. You fall from the basis of mindfulness. That's the entire point. And you will do that as soon as you start comparing the things like that. Means you are not anymore on the fundamental threshold where a thing is.
Yeah, the thing is, that's what I'm trying to say.
But if you say this thing is and these other things aren't,
all I'm saying
means that's already an implication now of a second experience.
No, what I'm trying to say is that the fact that something has arisen is only possible because it's already there enduring as the thing it is.
That's what I've been saying all the time.
Exactly.
Increasing is already changing while standing. Decreasing is already changing while standing.
Right. So
we are trying to differentiate now is between, what's the difference for you then between arising and ceasing?
Yeah, that's it.
Because both are enduring, but what's then the difference?
Yeah, exactly.
Between arising and ceasing? What is the relevant difference? Don't give me like, oh, well, you can give me, of course, but I'll disagree with it. Comparison, because that makes no difference, that understanding makes no difference to your freedom from suffering.
So, I guess.
If you were to truly understand the characteristics of determined and so on, you would be unable to exercise any attitude of craving or upadana as well. But you knowing that this particular thing that I chose to attend, this jovial mood, is not here, it has ceased on account of another mood that's present, that makes no difference to the fact that you're affected by the currently present mood.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, it's management, it's secondary to it. So these are the fundamental characteristics. If you understand them, you'll be unable to exercise any attitude of assumption of upadana towards experience as a whole, which means you will be free from suffering. So how's your nervousness now? Or the uncomfortable feeling on account of the situation that was sort of rooted in
sort of
nervousness?
less than it was before.
But it's still the same thing. But there is
a
a difference now, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we started this, there was a greater prospect of it, which wasn't there, but it was kind of going that way. Now when you look back 15 minutes ago, you could say, well, the experience is still there of that nervousness, but now it's basically going a different direction. And that's what you will find. And the reason why this is important to find, or certainly distinguish, is there is no end of thing arising. As in, there is no subject that this is arising to. And equally, if you start discerning the characteristic of ceasing, that's what I'm like towards me or away from me, the more you're familiar with it, the less able you will be to maintain the notion of me. Because you realize, oh, this just goes, and then next thing I know, there is no, it has arrived at me, persisted, and now it's going away from me. No, all I see is increasing, and then all I see is like, oh, now it's decreasing.
There's only those two possibilities.
And only me then assumes increasing for me, increasing away from me. But if you keep looking at the as increasing and decreasing as more fundamental than your notion of self will fade, because you're only maintaining it to the gratuitous assumption as the kind of receiver or the originator of depending on the direction. When you realize directions don't need any subject, arising is manifest, ceasing is manifest. Either way, you discern thing endures on its own without requiring your ownership, your control, your sense of self.
Now that's something I hadn't seen before. So yes,
that's why it would directly free you from suffering.
Why it's useful or important or worthwhile to start to discern.
Well, anything. That's always a criteria.
In this direction.
Criteria you should use whenever it comes to anything, basically from the suttas. If I am understanding this rightly, I should be basically free from suffering or on the way to be so. The Buddha never ever gave things, unless they're obvious, kind of just talking about culture or whatever else. Never gave things that pertain to the Dhamma. They would be explanations. They would just sort of explain things to you. Oh, this is why this occurs. If he said that, means it needs to be understood, and if it's understood rightly, means you'll be free from suffering. So if you think you're understanding, that's fine, you can't help that. But then you have to take a step further and say, okay, so I understood this to such and such degree. Am I then directly uprooting Attavada as a result of this? Do I feel less able to suffer as a result of this? How does this pertain to me being affected by the presently enduring feeling, whatever that feeling is? And if you don't quite see how, it means you haven't understood it enough. And that's why if you were to understand arising, you're understanding enduring. If you were to understand ceasing, you're understanding enduring. If you were to understand both, you're understanding enduring. Either way, you're understanding the full picture that doesn't require an agent of me, I am, my sense of self, to maintain this ownership and control of things. Because that's why the Buddha said, some monks become skilled in discerning arising, some monks become skilled in discerning ceasing, some become skilled in discerning basically enduring. Either way, any of those things can serve as understanding the fundamental principle that will uproot your sense of self. So that's what I mean, like things and this is not here, this is not, okay, that's all fine, but you want to go as far as you can in terms of the fundamental level, in terms of the general experience as a whole. So, the most fundamental thing is how I feel. That's where things converge.
Okay, so instead of, okay, let's just, so what you said there is like, okay, that's really helpful. But let's still clarify why what I was saying before is not helpful.
No. Let's instead get you to clarify now how you understood what I said. Don't tell me why you were wrong before. Then you might understand why you were wrong before. So what's your present enduring mood rooted in the feeling? Whichever shows itself first.
Same, just I guess a slight feeling of
uncomfortable. But is it fading away or is it?
Yeah.
It's going kind of away.
Going kind of away, and so recognizing that a mood can either be going away or intensifying, coming.
And there is no end after which you will see. Oh, now it's gone and it's something else.
It's not a point X to point Y. It's simply a direction.
All you're going to see is, like in this particular instance now, you'll be seeing it's going away, and then we'll talk about other things, and then it's gone. As in now something else is present.
And the more you recognize that characteristic of that direction, that simple direction, the less you're going to be
assuming the end point.
A point here and a point there. Yeah.
And what's the problem with any form of assuming the end point or the?
Because it's self-view.
And what's the characteristic of a self-view? Why is a self-view a problem?
Why is self-view a problem?
Why is Attavada a problem? What's the main characteristic of Attavada?
Well, it's sort of an assumption of sort of control over something which you have no, because you suffer on account of it.
No, okay, suffer is a symptom that there is some issue there. But what would be the characteristic of the problem of Attavada? As in, what is it? What characteristic of Attavada makes it a problem? Which then ties in with assuming the end point or assuming the receiving point. They all have one thing in common. That's a problem. Which is why they're all problem. That thing is basically assuming an external point of view to your own experience.
Yeah.
And the problem, and you can ask why is that a problem, it's because it's a contradiction in terms.
Because you can't have something outside of your
So
experience.
you assuming an end point of this experience of mine assumes the point of view that's independent of this experience of mine, that's already the first contradiction, that can then just witness the ending point after which something else becomes. So you are then not there, but how can you talk about it unless you talk about it on the basis of your experience?
Yeah.
That's why Attavada is a problem, no other reason. Because it maintains a gratuitous view that cannot be experienced as such.
So I just want to say again, so recognizing, becoming more and more sensitive to being able to discern clearer and clearer this direction of either coming up or intensifying or going away is not
discerning the nature of the direction.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's why, see, if you start discerning the nature, you're automatically less involved with the content of that which is increasing. If you don't know that, you would be chasing and focusing and concentrating on the moment-to-moment content, hoping you catch a breaking point, after which thing isn't. Another
but then
thing
that would imply that those two directions suddenly stop.
Exactly. Then would again, so the attitude of meditation technique, for example, of catching every moment, not lapsing every moment, already is rooted then in assumption of external point of view to your experience as a whole.
Yeah.
Hence,
which is utterly just inconceivable.
Yeah, exactly.
An external point
And
of
the
view.
only reason a person will be maintaining that point of view is because they don't clarify, they don't question it, they don't discern it.
This might be pointless actually, because I'm just kind of.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm kind of want to flog a dead horse, as they say. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So now
Don't do that.
You can do it yourself.
Yeah.
From the point of view that you understood now,
Yeah.
as in the relevance of what I was saying,
Yeah.
and see how that stacks against where you were.
Yeah. Well, can we do that now?
Yeah.
So.
But you do it.
Yeah. So. Okay. So I can see now the importance of, like I said, because I'm becoming familiar with this general direction of either increasing in presence, let's call it arising, and decreasing in presence, let's call it fading out. And the thing is, I've been careful with those words before because putting it in those terms makes it sound temporal.
Yeah.
So maybe that was sort of, I was, what do they call it, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I was getting rid of something useful because
Sure.
I was scared of.
Sure.
Anyway, but I still have this sense that upada is well, maybe that's all it is. Yeah, that's maybe all it is. Upada is manifest, vaya is manifest, but they are. Okay, I still have this sense that what we're talking about here as a thing arising, becoming stronger, becoming bigger, becoming more intense, or something fading out, I still have a sense that that's the third characteristic of anyattatang, of the change.
Yeah. Well, that's because,
And
as I said, within the basis of experience of arising, say, that's the basis, within ceasing, you can focus on more particular things. There would be ceasing or arising. But the point is, you're looking at the fundamental. So even if you're saying, see, these things are absent now, they're only on the basis of presently increasing experience as a whole of such and such mood.
But if just looking at the Pali, if anyattatang,
the reason why I would say no to what you're about to say is because it would be on the level of explanation. And if it's an explanation, then it's not open-ego.
But
because if you were to understand it on the level you're talking about, it makes no difference to the wrong view of Tathagata and everything else. If you understand it on the level I'm talking about, it makes the whole difference.
But all
so you're trying to argue that it's still applicable even to the other point, and I've said probably to some extent is, but it isn't, because then it's not a Dhamma.
But isn't okay? But please let me just try to say.
Go on.
and maybe it's completely wrong. I just feel I need to have to get this out there. That that you've got this third characteristic, which is change. So upada being manifest and vaya being manifest. That's something different from the thing changing. So it's so. Arising is manifest, fading out is manifest, change while standing is manifest. The thing is changing while it endures. Which means that those first two are not about changing. It's just about, just arisen.
How can you know
it has arisen.
How can you know arising without already that being a form of changing? Arising.
Yeah,
that's what you just described is a contradiction.
So I'm trying to say
you say it's arising, but then
hold on.
Your description then ends up making it basically like a starting point.
No, it has arisen is what I'm trying to get at. I guess I've come down.
It has arisen.
Yeah.
Means
it wasn't before.
Means the same thing is still there, enduring and changing. Hence, you can say it has arisen.
Yeah.
Unless, if you were right, you would then be able to measure the point after which thing has arisen. Now it has arisen.
No. I'm not saying that.
So how can you then say that arising is not changing while standing?
No, it's already arisen. It's not a temporal thing. It's just risen.
How can you make a statement? How can you make a designation that it's already arisen?
Yeah.
How can you even spend that time designating it without things still remaining the same? If you were correct, you would be unable to speak, basically. your designation would take too long and the thing would cease by the time you designated with your sentence. Because, if thing has arisen, and it's not enduring as an identity of a thing that's...
I'm not saying it isn't. It's like the third characteristic is still there, but
why
the simultaneously arising is also... It's just that arising is something different. That's why there's three. So three different things.
Yeah, but there are many different ways you can understand how they're different.
Yeah.
So if arising is existing or changing, what's the difference then?
Well,
between arising and ceasing, if they're both persisting or changing, what's the difference between them?
Simply the phenomenon of having arisen is discerned.
So what is then the phenomenon of ceasing?
The phenomenon of, not there anymore.
But how can you talk about it if it's not there anymore?
Well, so that's the thing, that's why I've sort of been saying it's more a kind of a fading out.
Okay, so which means then arising is more of a fading in.
Which now brings it into fading out, yeah. which
no, that's what I mean, like, if we stick with the explanation, if we stick with your explanation of arising, then it contradicts your own explanation of ceasing, as you just did. Because if ceasing is fading out, arising is fading in.
Yeah, I've just basically explained the same thing that I was trying to refute before.
Yeah.
That
you explained quite well, actually.
Yeah, they are.
That's the only distinction you can make.
A fading out, a fading in.
Increasing, decreasing, either way persisting.
So I had this notion that it's not the same thing. So.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like I kept saying, you keep comparing as in like there is this against this thing, which means you're already
out phenomenology. Yeah. So you basically
that assumes the external point of view.
Thing. In which case, it has to be. It's the same thing. Then in which case the fading out and the fading in can't be seen simultaneously.
So those are the if you were to like not abandon phenomenology, and by that I mean stop. You don't give in to assuming the external point of view to your experience. The only distinction you can make between that which is manifest is whether it's increasing or decreasing. Either way, it's being enduring while it's manifested. That's it.
Yeah, but the main thing is not. This isn't just a kind of. I don't know how this.
It might be overwhelming for an average audience, but it doesn't matter.
The important thing, I want to say, this is not just intellectual games playing here. No. It's like I'm now come away with this idea that it's important to keep discerning just that basic quality of increasing, decreasing.
Yeah, that's why that basic quality that's important to discern is basically on the middle way here, in the middle way, because it's you can overdo it, in which case you overshoot it, which case it won't be that enduring we're talking about, or you can sort of undershoot it, in which case again it won't be that enduring we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we explained already why it isn't an abstraction, because if you start seeing things in their arising, as in the nature of increasing, doesn't matter what, how, because of which, because of it's present basically, remaining the same while increasing or remaining the same while decreasing. It will force you to stay on the level of the nature of experience, which means it will basically start fading away, removing the necessary basis for the maintenance of Tathagata. And the necessary basis is the very act of assumption of an external point of view in regard to your experience.
Which is this end point.
Yeah.
The thing is
you can't have Tathagata without engaging in Tathagata.
You know, there's the Satipatthana refrain in each Satipatthana.
Yeah, arising is manifest.
Yeah. Ceasing is manifest.
Ceasing is manifest.
Or
arising and ceasing is manifest.
The body is manifest to the extent necessary.
To the extent necessary for the final knowledge.
So that's the.
So Adam and Jaws.
Yeah. And that's so you have the rising, ceasing, change while enduring.
Yeah.
Or change while persisting. That change while persisting is like the general aspect.
Yeah.
And the change while persisting is the change. This is the change.
Whether it's increasing or decreasing.
Yeah, rising or the ceasing,
So that rising and ceasing is just a more particular, smaller aspect of this general thing. So rising, ceasing, change while manifesting.
So that's the thing. So
understanding this means doing mindfulness rightly.
I've always been over attending the enduring and not giving enough attention to the changing, thinking that's not so
Sure.
important.
Yeah.
Whereas actually recognising those changes as two inherent directions,
yeah,
without endpoints.
And another reason why recognizing those directions
undoes the assumption of Tathagata.
Yeah, and another reason why they're relevant is because it also corresponds to your craving. It's the same principle. Pleasure is increasing. You want pain to decrease.
Yeah.
You want it. You want the direction of it going away. I want the direction of increasing. So if what you want to increase is actually not increasing, hence you're suffering.
And isn't that craving also sort of obsessing over the end point?
Well, exactly. You can't have craving without assuming an external point of view.
Exactly,
you can't have craving without having Attavada.
So you're rather than just
Attavada
recognising the general direction,
exactly,
which there has to be one or the other,
means you stop assuming the end point.
Yeah.
So if you, not just that you'll be free from Attavada, if you discern these three characteristics on the level of your mindfulness, you'll be free from sensuality and you'll be free from ill will. And then you'll be free from conceit as well. And that's what we said there before, Buddha Vipassana. When he clarified the Paticcasamuppada before he became an Arahant, he understood the principle of basically simultaneous presence, as in there is that which endures on account of which there is increasing or decreasing. He remained contemplating, as the sutta translates, arising of the five aggregates or ceasing of the five aggregates. As in, either way, enduring is there, and he remained fully mindful of it correctly. So no amount of arising of any of the five aggregates or ceasing of any of the five aggregates has induced any more of the wrong assumption of external point of view in regard to his own experience, and that's why he was freed from ignorance.
Which we were saying in another talk, we were talking Dhamma Titinyana, the knowledge of the endurance of things.
Exactly.